Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. We've done a lot of chatting about Rachmaninoff lately. It's amazing. He didn't write all that much music. It is astounding how popular his stuff is. And it's not all easy, although the things that are popular are just, a few. But there's a lot more musical depth in his music than, let's just say, the fact that bits of it are popular would seem to indicate. And the popularity of the Second Symphony is one of the things that really kind of amazes me. My favorite Rachmaninoff symphony is the first, hands down. I just think it has this spontaneous outpouring of hysteria that just really gets me every time. The Second Symphony has the tune in the slow movement, and I'm never gonna love again, that one, that thing that became a pop song. But it's a very dark piece in a lot of ways. It really is. I mean, the first movement is full of gloom and murk and darkness. Even the scherzo, I don't know, harmonically, it's something about it never seems to allow real joy to break through, even when it's trying to, like in the finale, when it's going, and then the horns come in with, like in the wrong key. And you're like, well, what are they doing there? There's always something. And I know the end is very confident. It wins through in the end to the triumphant ending with the glorious recurrence of the motto theme. But there's a lot of real serious melancholy in this symphony, which makes its popularity to be all the more astounding. It really is. But it's incredibly beautiful, of course. Now, what we've been talking about is that, recently, I mean, if this is the year 2863, this isn't relevant, but recently, just so you know, Naxos released its Slatkin Rachmaninoff cycle, the second one with Detroit, in a box, and it's fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous. One of the great Rachmaninoff cycles anybody ever did. But as you know, Slatkin also did Rachmaninoff for Vox, the complete music for piano and orchestra with Abby Simon, which is superb, and which I've been talking about, all three symphonies, and the bells and the symphonic dances and other things. And those are also wonderful performances. They really are. And they have been released as Vox boxes. They've been around, and some of you prefer the earlier ones, at least of the symphonies. And I can understand that. I can. I happen to prefer the later ones of the symphonies because I think they reflect more mature interpretation and they take greater risks. Slatkin turns in more heavily inflected performances than he was wont to do previously. But if you like the earlier ones, which are wonderfully flowing and gorgeously played and beautifully recorded, hey, I'm not going to complain. Now, I'm pointing out, the reason I'm bringing this up is because Naxos has re-released the Second Symphony all by itself. It's not in a box. It's not at budget price, but they've remastered it. It sounds noticeably better than it did previously. I have to say, I really think it does. Maybe it's just because I played it louder. I'm in a different room. I always worry about these things when people ask, well, how's the latest remastering? And whether you think it's better just because you listen to it more intently. I mean, there's a lot of psychology at work when it comes to evaluating the sonics and these things. And I hesitate, but especially when the differences are rather minor. But still, it sounds terrific, and it is a beautiful, beautiful performance. And it's worth pointing out, it really is, when this was recorded, let me see, what was the date here? 79? Was it 79? Was it that late? Or did they actually tell you when it was recorded? I don't know. No, it's Slatkin became music director in 79 in St. Louis. So it must have been, it was recorded, let's see. Yeah, press reviews. Okay, so there was a stereo review recording in 1979. So that must have been about when this showed up. And Slatkin had just taken over St. Louis. These were some of his first recordings there. And they really did make a statement. One of the statements that they made, especially in the Second Symphony, is that this was done complete without cuts. And even back then, in the 70s, the reference recordings were performances such as, Ormandy and Philly. His first one, the second one was also complete without cuts, but the first one had the normal cut version. And I had that one. I had a bunch of it when I was a kid. I had that one. It was an Adrian Bolt recording I had. And there was also one with Alfred Wallenstein. It was on Seraphim Angel Seraphim, their super budgie label, which was a really nice performance. I liked it very, very much. It was very fluent. And, Rachmaninoff sanctioned these cuts. And so there were some, edition issues up until really, really into the 80s, probably, when it became standard practice to play the work absolutely complete. I was very surprised. I remember Kurt Zanderling had a digital recording that was on Teldec at the time. And he, as usual, as Zanderling had a tendency to do this, made his own version. He observed some cuts and not others, but you never quite knew what you were going to get. So Slatkin's faithfulness to the actual text was quite welcome. And St. Louis was something of an unknown quantity, as was Slatkin himself as music director. And it was the beginning of a great, great career and a fabulous series of recordings. So I'm letting you know that this is available. As I said, I prefer the Naxos remakes, but if you want to get better sounding versions of the older recordings, then this is the way to go. And if you're curious and perhaps have an affection for St. Louis or for these productions by Joanna Nikrentz and Mark Obort, who were the engineers on these things, and they were legendary audio engineers and made beautiful sounding recordings, that's a reason to hear these too. So there you go. Now you are completely informed. And since streaming seems to be the thing, you can probably download or stream these and hear samples of both and make up your own mind. Whichever it is, you can't really go wrong. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.